welcome back to Cast Me to Hell with me, Seb.
And je m'appelle Robbie. See? J'écoute de la musique pop.
He's popping in there with his French moves.
My GCSE, well, pre-GCSE French was not wasted on me. You know?
Pre-GCSE French.
Pre-GCSE French.
I was going to say, I did not do French, although I do teach French at school, but it is the most basic of words that I never remember half of what it is, and I never, to be fair, I don't remember German, and I did that for GCSE and got GCSE in it, and I don't remember any of that.
Guten Tag.
Bibliothek.
Bibliothek and discotheque.
Yeah, that's literally barely remember anything.
What's bibliothèque?
Church?
Oh,
there you go.
It's kind of a cool name for a church.
Probably wasn't a church. I
That's why you failed.
Yeah, no, I got it. I got my mark.
You got it.
I
You
have
got
a
your
GCSE in German.
You got your GCSE.
How about
in
that?
That is
good. I can get to any job I want in the world now. I have a GCSE in German.
Well, luckily we're talking about a French film today.
Yes, we are. We are talking for the French the Haute Tension.
Haute Tension.
Which is not how you pronounce that.
No.
Or High Tension. Or, for you English swines, Switchblade Romance.
Switchblade Romance for you. For us.
To spoon feed the idea in this film that it involves a switchblade and a romance.
Yeah.
Not necessarily a romance that is from both sides.
No. It's rather on the nose, isn't it?
Yeah.
When you watch the film.
When you think about it, it's the English title is kind of shit.
Yeah. Although, I believe that, this was Alejandro Ahaz. I think that's how you pronounce it. I believe this was his directorial debut.
I think so.
And I will be honest, I quite like the films of Mr. Alexandro Aja. I can't pronounce it. Obviously, High Tension. The first film that I watched of him that made me absolutely shit my pants was the Hills Have Eyes remake, which I think is actually great, and is
followed that up from this film.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the better of those kind of early to mid 2000 remakes we did. Piranha 3D, fucking classic. Mirrors,
It was his horror debut, wasn't it? But I don't know
maybe his horror debut then.
Yeah.
Crawl he did more recently. Maniac, I'm not sure if you saw the remake. He did do The Pyramid, which I remember watching and kind of not thinking too much of.
Mirrors, starring Mr. Kiefer Sutherland.
Yeah, Mr. Kiefer Sutherland. Horns with Mr. Daniel Radcliffe, based on a book by Mr. Joe Hill. Overall, I think like the films that I've seen of him.
Oh, and he's also
good.
got the one coming out this year, which is the Never Let Go, which is we saw the trailer for that when we went to cinema. It's the one with Halle Berry. Which has the two kids on the ropes.
Yeah, it looks interesting.
That kind of thing, which doesn't look necessarily like some of his other films. To be
fair.
It looks quite different. It kind of, to be honest, it looks like on the wave of the Quiet Place.
Yeah,
like, it looks
it's
that,
kind of
that
like
image, that style, which has now become a kind of in horror. Like there's more of them that come back in that kind of style, that kind of gritty kind of
like all like minimalism.
Yeah, kind of films, like that's what the film kind of looks like, very minimalist in that kind of way. But yeah, no, he's done it interesting, and it's interesting that they're not all very samey. They're quite different in style. Like if you told me that this High Tension was directed by the same person who did like Piranha 3D or who did
Crawl, Mirrors,
or something like that, you'd be like, that doesn't seem like the same director at all.
Yeah, no.
Kind of thing. Not that I've seen all of those that much, and I can't remember them that well. To be honest,
I've seen those, and
I've not seen Horns, which I did want to watch.
I think I've seen Horns. I think I saw it once, maybe, because I remember that being kind of like Daniel Radcliffe's breakaway after he'd kind of just done the Harry Potter films. I don't really remember.
Different. Yeah, I don't even know if that was a full-on horror, more of a kind of fantasy.
I think it was like a fantasy coming of age thing. But I
think it does have horror.
It just has horror elements, yeah. But I mean, I think that he's a very kind of like his palette of horror is quite diverse. You know, we've got some creature features. We've got like a remake of quite a legacy film, and then we've got kind of like a campy
one of the better remakes.
Yeah, definitely.
Of the
Oh man, the first time I saw that, I was shitting my pants. When I saw the sequel, when I watched the sequel, my older brother Chris brought it on like DVD. I couldn't watch it. I would stop, and I'd stop like halfway through.
What, the sequel?
Yeah.
I
was terrified, man. I found both of those terrifying, and also great level of gore. And there was one thing watching High Tension, which it was a first watch for me. I think it might have been for you, but there was something that stuck out at me, and it struck me as almost being like a kind of like a modern day or turn of the century video nasty. You know?
Yeah.
It was quite.
I mean, this is a gritty, proper, feels like a proper 70s like throwback to like Texas Chainsaw.
Yeah,
it feels like the French kind of throwback to like classic horrors of its time. You know, like you said, the video nasties of the 70s and 80s. It feels very dark and gritty in its nature.
Yeah,
it's very gruesome and gory. And
does not fucking put
more than I think you're even thinking when you come to watch this film.
Yeah.
You know, in terms of that, like it's not within that like video nasty, but it definitely has that personality to it.
Yeah.
Because this one is seen as its own thing. This is seen as it's like French. What is it?
Well,
French,
it's called like New Extremist.
New
or something like that.
Yeah.
Which I briefly had a look
along those waves of, you know, when you start to get a slew following this of like not the French ones, but you know, they somewhat link this to when you start to get more of the Saw, more of the like Saw and
some
Hostel
of the,
and stuff like that.
I mean, some of the notable films
American
in it are a Serbian film, Antichrist with Lars von Trier. If I'm looking for it in my skin, I don't know if you saw that.
That's the thing. This one is kind of roped in, and I actually think that this one a little bit is unfairly put into that same category as some of these, because those Extremist ones are the ones where they were seen as like vile, gritty. You know, some of them feel like they were made just like, for instance, say a Serbian film feels like it was made purely just to make people have reactions itself.
Yeah, definitely.
It's a fucking vile film.
It's bogged.
It's a film that's like purely made just basically to make people feel disgusted at things.
Yeah,
and it's not really a good film. It's just purely there to be a fucking horrible, you know. If I'm very good credit, that is the one where the dude ends up banging his son or something.
It's like the old porn star.
Yeah, I watched that one in uni when someone was like, "Oh yeah, you got to check this. This is meant to be like the worst film ever made. Like the worst, like the most like graphic film ever made." I was like, "All right, let's watch it." I was like, "What the fuck are we watching?" Watching some dude bang his child. Like, what is the fuck is it? I was like, apart from this, I was like, this film has not been good. This film is shit. Like,
it's kind of one of those things where it's like, if you dig deep, there probably is some kind of like theme there, and there's probably some kind of like message, you know, but it's delivered like a fucking shit in your hand, you know.
It is. It's not that the scenario isn't that that film delves into kind of thing, only because I don't really see that being a film that we'll ever maybe get around to. Maybe I don't know.
We've got to do it. We said we would do every horror film ever.
Every horror film,
or we die in a blaze of glory, whichever happens first.
Considering they release like 100 every year,
that's okay.
It's like the easiest film to release. I mean, we may need to work out how to live longer.
We're working on that anyway. The experiments are going well.
Or Elixir of Life will be available soon.
Yeah, that's going well.
Semen didn't work.
No. Drinking each other's semen. It was fun. It was very fun. It didn't really work, you know.
I like the way you took that to the extra level of swapping.
Swapping. It made
more about my own.
it made things rather awkward, but it brought the podcast closer together. I mean, that's kind of this film, isn't it? In a weird way.
I mean, but this film, this, you know, as I said before, this could have been a divisive horror as a feature, you know, quite easily, because this film has such a split in opinion. Yeah, it has a major kind of like halfway kind of. It's got, you know,
as we get to the very end,
it's got like 40, you know, on say Rotten Tomatoes, it's like 44%. Which when I was watching this film, I was watching it going, what the fuck is this? Like, why has this film got such low ratings?
Yeah,
like everywhere that I look, because I was just like, not only do I think that this film somewhat looks beautiful, but it's got some fucking crazily the tension in this film.
I mean, it's high tension.
It's high tension, but it lives up to its title.
Yeah,
you know, this has, you know, the main part in the film when it gets to the house and when we actually get the killer in the house is fucking tense as hell. it's like probably like you don't know where this is going. You don't know how far they're going to take this.
Yeah.
And I know that is obviously, but just to stick on the point of the extremist kind of thing, you know, critics and stuff called this film out for being disgusting and overly brutal, you know, and some of that I think was much more French critics, to be honest.
Maybe.
But it was taken in that way that this film is, you know, in poor taste and it's vile and vulgar. But if I'm honest, out of some of the films it was compared to within that Extremist, I actually think that this is, you know, it's graphic and it's gory and it is tense and things like that. But it's not overly like I wouldn't say it fully pushes loads of boundaries. You know, there is obviously child death and stuff like that, but you don't see those things. You know, for the most part, I think it does. But I think it just shocks you because it takes such a sudden turn. Like it takes a quicker turn and a more violent turn than I think I was expecting when I watched it.
I wasn't expecting it to be anywhere near as violent, anywhere near as kind of like uncompromising. And I think one thing that I'm not sure whether it's it came out in 2003, and when I was watching it, there was some gore that I was like, oh, fucking hell.
Yeah.
However, I'm thinking, are they looking at it at the time and thinking like, well, it's over the top, it's gory and stuff like that. And now, like if you watch like Terrifier and stuff like that, it that's much worse.
I mean, it could be, but
then we've watched. I think we've covered
2003. I feel like it's still quite late in the game. You know, there's still been a lot of.
I mean, it was pre-Saw.
Yeah, it was
pre-Hostel
and stuff like that, and it was following. At the time, if you were comparing it to say, you know, if
compared to a film we covered last,
you know, I know what you did last summer. Or Scream, or like what were the bigger films around the late end of the 90s, then it's a step up from those.
Yeah,
kind of thing. It definitely is. It kind of is bringing back, like we said, the kind of era of the gritty, graphic kind of film.
But I think we've covered video nasties. That
it might be. It might be slightly. I'm not saying that if I showed this to someone, they wouldn't be. They might be fucking. Oh my god, disgusted.
Well,
I mean, this isn't the kind of one that I'd be like, Shah, you're gonna fucking love this.
Well, speaking of, so we have this opening scene where it's like a woman in some kind of like washed out room. It vaguely hints it's like a psychiatric unit. We see the same kind of woman. I can't remember her name. It's not Alex. Alex is the other one. But we see Ellie, maybe. But we see this kind of like woman, the main character.
So Alexia and Mary.
Alexia, then. No, Mary. We see Mary kind of like running through this kind of like field, wooded area. And then we get like, she's saying like, nobody's ever going to come between us again or something like that. And it's quite weird. It's quite interesting. And then we go to like a farm out in the French countryside.
Yeah.
And there's just like, there's just this fucking weird scene of this van. And then this kind of like elderly or like middle-aged French guy getting sucked off.
Yeah.
And then he throws a head out of the van. And I mean, it's a French film, obviously, so it's got subtitles on. And the film had opened, it's maybe the first 5 minutes. And I was like checking something on my phone, writing notes. And I think I wrote something. And Anna was watching it. And she was like, what the fuck? And I was like, this has got to be weird if it's making her say this. So, because she doesn't usually watch the films with me. So I went back and I watched it. And I was like, oh, he's just getting some slop. What's wrong with that? Kind of man not get slop in a van in the French countryside, And then he threw a head out, and I was like,
it was decapitated.
I didn't realize it was decapitated until he threw it out, and I was like, this is like 5 minutes, 6 minutes. What have we got into, man? Like, what are we covering? And it's I didn't think there was much kind of tension until we got to the house because. Mary and Alex are driving to this French house.
So you kind of have a scene of Mary kind of like, we then cut back and Mary's somewhat like staring out at the window, kind of if she's in some kind of a little daydream or something like that, while Alex is driving the car. I will say at this point now, because I saw it mentioned on a bunch of the reviews online, and I think that might be because of the English version that people have seen. So how did you watch it? Did you watch it?
French with subtitles.
Yeah. So I mean, I was going to watch French with subtitles, But because I'd heard so much about the dubbing being terrible, and I fucking hate that.
And you don't want to hear French.
I fucking hate that. And stuff
Yeah.
like that. And I despise the
I
French
despise
language.
the French language.
And I spit in their face.
This is the first French film we've covered, and the wall's back on that.
Yeah,
We're not forgetting 1066. We're not forgetting Agincourt. These beefs don't die.
So I was like, you know what? I've seen, I don't know why, but every time I looked at reviews, it kept saying about this dub. So I was like, you know what? I'm going to have to find the dub.
Maybe I've got to watch the dub.
I was like, I've got to check the dub version.
Yeah.
And, you know, to see what the voices of the actors sound like. Because this is the one that people obviously who watch British or American Switchblade Romance, if they watch the dub version, which you know, especially the you know, some of the English would definitely probably watch the dub version instead of watching the French with subtitles. Yeah. And you know, all of the Americans have only watched the dub version.
Yeah.
I'm coming for you again. You know you don't like reading.
Yeah. That's our biggest fan base. They just caught a fucking. They just caught a stray bullet there.
As we said, we did a Summer Slashes episode, and it was poor ratings. It's probably because we keep whipping you.
Yeah,
but you like that. That's part of your kick.
Yeah, you come
back for more whipping.
Come back for that whipping.
You know, or you'll invade us and kill us all.
Yeah, you'll just kill us all. You have the military, mate.
You're not that big of a country.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but it does. The dub does live up to it. It's not only poorly placed, you know, and I did watch the whole film, so I'm not saying it's completely awful, but it took a while for me to adjust, as any dub does, but it was something about the voices just not matching. Like, the voices and the voice acting just in the dub is just not that good.
Yeah.
It's like French accent of a person saying it in English, but in a Frenchish kind of accent kind of thing.
Like and a real, like,
I did check out a bit of it in French with subtitles, and I was like, this is so much better than the national language. It always is better than the national language.
Yeah, of course, man.
You know, I did recently, Squid Game. So I watched that in the original, you know, proper way you should watch it, which I think anyone should. If you can, watch it in the original with the subtitles. You hear it in the natural language, because, you know, people complain about, like, dubbing not matching up, but when a language has more syllables than your language, there's no fucking way to make it match up. You know what I mean? It just doesn't make sense.
That's it.
But Charlotte, I decided to show Squid Game to Charlotte and Dave. Big Dave.
Yeah, well, Big Dave's not going to watch subtitles, is it?
And I was just there, and I was like, they're not going to want to do the subtitle version. So I was like, they're going to watch this if they do the dub version.
He's from Birmingham, isn't he? I don't know if he can.
That's right. It took me like 4 episodes to like be like, oh, this is like, I was like just there like, the show's good, but this dub is fucking. This is just wrong. This is just terrible. like it just doesn't.
That's how it is, man.
I hate this. I would be like you finish talking. His mouth's still moving. If you stop talking,
it's just the case, though, isn't it?
It just is. It always feels bad. But yeah, I will admit that the French dub on this one is not good. It's particularly not good. Some of the sounds, some of the voices just sound off. It just doesn't match at times. It just sounds really weird, and yeah, it's not great. So anyone who's checked that one out, if you don't like it, you know, learn to read.
Learn to read.
But yeah, so watch that one. But anyway, back to them in the story, in the car, you know, that kind of setup. You know, not there's a lot to this. It's pretty much they're driving along, and, you know, you do get a kind of clingy kind of feeling from Maria, I feel. She is quite a little bit, like, full on in the car with Alexia's trying to focus on kind of driving, and Marie's kind of very much about, you know, that we could go and do this, and we could go and do that, and there's a little bit of that she's kind of talking about a little bit. But she's also quite defensive kind of thing. She's like the more of the, like, the smoking, and it's kind of like, what I mean is you see like two sides straight away. You see like a somewhat like, oh yes, this and this would be it, but also she's a little bit like defensive about the idea of their family and stuff like that, and she's a little bit like, I'm not sure if people are going to like me, and, you know. Yeah,
it's kind of a weirdness there, isn't it?
Yeah, you get an odd feeling from Marie, to be honest, like, quite quickly, I feel.
But I didn't feel, to be honest,
I thought Macaulay Culkin.
Yeah.
I just kept looking at it, and whenever I used to see the poster for the film and I saw her picture, I was like, fucking hell, Macaulay Culkin's doing some weird films now.
Macaulay Culkin
I literally thought it was Macaulay Culkin.
I think that'd be a different
Not
film.
when I watched this film, but when I first saw it, I thought it was Macaulay Culkin.
It's
grown up Macaulay Culkin.
It's
I was
like
fucking hell,
he
did some weird films.
Yeah.
Like, you know, he's
doing
done
French
some weird
Extremist.
stuff. He's done some French, yeah.
I mean, I don't know. I got the opposite, because we'll talk about the twist when we get into it. However, it is a rather controversial twist. I thought there was a different twist. So I heard about it, but I must have I think when I read it, I must have confused character names, or I must have got something wrong. So I was going into it expecting kind of something else.
It was a boy all along.
Yeah, it was a boy all along. Yeah, I thought I was watching Sleepaway Camp.
Yeah.
I was waiting for Angela, and so I got the impression that kind of Marie was all right. I got that she was a bit anxious about going to her friend's house, but I didn't get the clinginess or anything. It was only there's a scene where they get to the house and you kind of meet the family and everybody's kind of normal. She's shown the room and then she's like, I'm going to go outside. And then she's like got her hood up, she's smoking a cigarette and she's watching Alex in the shower. We see some tit and that's when I was a bit like, this is weird. Okay. You're just staring at your mate naked in the shower,
I don't know. I got a bit of a vibe straight from the car that she had a bit of a thing. I thought that they were together.
Okay, fair
so
enough.
I thought they were together at the beginning of the film.
They were lovers.
Yeah, I thought that
romantically
was
involved.
I thought they were romantically, and I thought it was them going to first introduce her she was her partner.
Yeah,
and that's what I thought we got. And it wasn't actually until it got to scenes like her watching in the shower that I was like, so they're not actually together. They're actually just meant to be. They actually are friends. I thought it was more of a we're friends.
We're friends. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. Sleepaway Camp.
We're friends.
Two mates on holiday. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge.
Yeah. Don't look in my bag at all the toys.
Yeah, don't look in my bag.
Don't look at what we got.
Yeah, yeah.
It's all that kind of thing. That's what I actually thought. So I was actually thinking that that's the way it kind of was, kind of thing.
Yeah.
And I thought that was kind of part of the theme of the film, was kind of that kind of relationship was built into that kind of thing. Then I was like, oh, okay, actually no, she's watched it. You don't need to do that if you're getting a bit.
Yeah,
you can go and get a bit.
Yeah, that's it.
So,
but then she ends up beating off over it later. Whilst listening to reggae.
Classic French. You got to have a masturbation scene.
You got to be masturbating. You got to be listening to reggae.
If you've watched French film, there's always a bit of one. They will smoke at some point in the film.
It's the French.
Done,
They'll drink wine. They'll ride bikes with garlic around the.
Yeah, they'll fuck a decapitated head.
They'll fuck a decapitated head.
Film.
They'll beat off.
Yeah, all of them do that kind of thing. But yeah, there's always a masturbation scene. So we just get to have her masturbating as she's thinking about, I assume,
Alexis.
Yeah. So that's when we start to get that. From there I was a bit more like, okay, so there is the feeling that there's a one-sidedness maybe to this, that maybe she is more enamoured. But that's what I was getting in the first scene. I thought in the car scene I was getting a bit of that feeling, which is why I thought she was clingy because they were partners and therefore they were together. But then looking back at it, I was like, oh, if they're not together, then that scene was a bit weird.
Just two friends having friend time.
Two friends having friend time.
What's wrong with that? But it escalates pretty quickly.
That's the thing. It got into this way faster than I was expecting. Again, this is a French film. I was expecting us to have a long, drawn-out build-up to this. It's quite common. I was expecting her to smoke that cigarette for 20 minutes.
Yeah, 20 minutes. Then listen to some Serge Gainsbourg, and just be there for
slowly as we go into black and white.
Yes, black and white.
Her innermost thoughts she says out loud to the person across from her. Or are we getting into stereotypical French film ideas now? But no, it is the fact that following the masturbation scene, we literally get the man at the door.
Yeah, who's this kind of weird French Michael Myers almost. He's
we
got
get shots
like
when she's out there having a cigarette. It's she's kind of like before she watches, it's kind of like she's looking off as she's thinking about stuff. We do also get a scene of the man driving down in that kind of same scene, It's got a kind of laying a foundation a little bit there. Then we get him at the door, and fucking hell, this completely. I was just like, okay, this is all right. It's a setup. I can see it going. I wasn't actually sure at what point they were going to meet the serial killer.
Or me.
I wasn't sure when. I was like, because he's driving along the road, I was like, these two girls are somehow going to come into
cross paths with him,
because we'd seen stuff a bit of a forest kind of thing, so I thought maybe there's going to be that, or when they leave the next day they're going to break down.
Yeah,
I wasn't expecting him to suddenly be
at the house. Yeah.
Well,
I was, because I had a twist in mind. You know, so basically
the thing was, I knew that, like, I remembered what the twist was.
Okay.
That's the only thing that came into this film, was I was aware of what the twist was. I was trying to work out how that twist would be possible and what, like, in somewhat, but I still didn't, for some reason, even though with that I tried to kind of block out my head. So when I was watching it, I was trying to watch it as if I was like, I know that is, but because I didn't go and double check that was, I just heard that was the twist. I was like, I'm not checking in case that's not, and I'm mixing it up.
I'll tell you my twist when we get to it, but basically this lad who is I did have him as this kind of like weird, like Michelle Myers, you know, where he's just like turns up, he's got like a boiler suit, you don't really see his face, and he's just killing people.
Yeah.
And he like cuts the dad's face, like once he knocks on the door in the middle of the night. The dad goes down to answer. He cuts his face, which is kind of like, okay.
This is like the best. This is the best kill in the film, I think.
You reckon?
I think it is, because it's just so like, what the fuck? Like, it kind of notches the levels. Like, at first you think, oh, he's just gonna like cut him. He's gonna slice his throat. You know, he's gonna stab him, or
Yeah.
And that's what you're expecting to happen, but
but instead he just like drags him onto the stairs. And then he's like pushing his head through, and I was like, oh, he's going to just smash his head against the bar and kill him. But he pushes the dad's head through, and obviously everybody else in the house is waking up. So you've got like, you've got Mary, who was already awake. She was beaten off when this happened. Yeah. She was flicking the bean when this fucking happened, and she's like, what's going on? The mum's waking up, and the little boy. But I don't, and this is where my twist comes in. But I don't think we see Alex waking up. And then I thought he was just going to crush his head, but he pops his head through, and I was like, you know, oh, what's he going to do? And then he just fucking runs like a cabinet,
side cabinet, and just fucking runs it into his head.
Just like rips his head off. And I messaged you after.
Splatter.
But there's a beautiful shot above it.
Yeah.
And you see the head come off.
That's what I mean. It's such a cool effect.
The gore is so good in this film, man.
The fact it just goes whop, and it's just like you see it and you're like, and it was also in my brain, I kind of had that moment of, you know, when you see something, but in a horror film quite often you have a scene and you think, oh, did I actually see that?
Did I see it?
Or did I imagine it? And I did have to go, I went back.
Yeah.
I went back purely because they actually like showed it.
And you could see the like muscles and the tendons on the neck peel off. Which looks really good.
I was going to say, the special effects in this film are like fantastic.
Yeah, I expected it because, you know, I like a lot of the films that he's done has had really good practical special effects.
Yeah.
You know, I know people shit on Piranha 3D, but I think it's a fun film, you know?
I was going to say, I really enjoyed that one. I think that one was a lot of fun for what it was, and it was exactly what it should have been. I thought.
Yeah.
It was, you know, dumb, yes, but it had like, and some of the deaths and stuff, and it did still, even though it was like 3D, it did still actually have quite a lot of practical, like the whole beach scene that they filmed, and they did the whole thing like practically, and actually filmed people like with different effects going off at different times, and they filmed all of that properly. You know, they filmed that real. It wasn't some big CGI adding all of that in. It's only some of the close-up ones, like the dick in your face.
Yeah,
in CGI. So, you know, it's only those ones. And it's a far better made film than they did the Double D, didn't they? After it, and like his one in 3D was far better than the Double D one. Where that one leans so heavily into CGI, it was just terrible.
Yeah,
and leans too heavily into the over-the-top humour. The first one gets like thrown in because it seems like Super 1, but the first one actually does have more of a kind of slightly groundedness story to it with Elizabeth Shue's character.
Yeah, and Kelly Brook. Don't forget Kelly Brook.
Oh yeah, it still has. I'm not saying it's a properly grounded. It still has scenes like Kelly Brook, like basically just a lesbian scene in the water. It still plays completely into the dumb, like. But at the time of the craze of the 3D stuff,
fun,
it was fun. It was a fun cinema experience.
But then there's also the good scene where, like, Mary is trying to like find the phone line, and she's like pulling things, and then she makes it look like she hasn't been in there.
Yeah,
which is really interesting as well, especially with the twist.
Yeah, and I think it also once he's into the house, as I said, like the tension ramps up, and it's almost hard to describe, because I do feel it's one of those few horror films of us recently that I've actually seen like a new one where I've literally been like kind of drawn in.
Yeah,
like drawn in by the fact I'm like, where's this going next, kind of thing. I mean, I can't say that the Marie character, because it's a hard one because you're used to, I guess, kind of, it's the reality versus the expectation of a situation. Yeah. So, reality of the situation is what happens here, which is you stand in the room and you are terrified and you probably can't move and you probably are struggling to think what to do. You're sneaking around and you're just trying to avoid the chance that you're going to suddenly die, and you think the whole time you're going to die. The expectation is more of the almost Americanized version of this film, where the person goes out and tries to save the people and tries to do the. That's the expectation.
That's the Hollywood.
Yeah, that's kind of is the
razzle dazzle.
In reality, as we said, I like. I can't remember what film when we were doing the Strangers episode. Yeah, and we said about the reality. Like the problem with that one was kind of the Americanized version of the fuck you, I'm not going to die. When we were like, in reality, you fucking die, and you're eating ass. You're bleeding out. And you're dying, and you'll go, or you're terrified, and your body doesn't know what to do, and you don't know, and you're in that situation. Now, obviously, Marie's, after having seen it, has a slightly different perspective when you think about that. But I do think it's, it makes sense, but it also, because of the expectation, it somewhat makes you dislike the character. That's like, well, you could at least try and help them. You're like, you could just go out there and try to help them, kind of thing. If you're looking at this from a new viewer perspective, you're like, well, you could at least, go and think, oh, come on, like, you're not going to even try to intervene in the little boy. You know what I mean? Like, it doesn't make you like the character that much.
Not
in some ways, because it makes you feel a bit like, well, you're a bit of a fucking wimp, aren't you? You're literally just hiding away. But then again, you don't know this family to be fair, so you've got no real emotional connection to anyone. But you don't even try to go to get to Alexia, who is the one you've like shown emotional connection to, but you still don't seem like you're trying to get anything but save your own ass, kind of thing. Yeah. But again, as I said, reality, the expectation of that is much more of a unrealistic than I think the reality actually is, which is what actually happens to Marie here, which is trying to move around, trying to move away from the killer, and trying to not make a noise, and basically just trying to survive for yourself. Yeah,
and it's tense as fuck, man. Like she, we have a scene where the killer comes into the room that she's staying in, and is like checking the basin to see if there's any moisture in there. Yeah. And then it's kind of like a bit of like a cat and mouse, where the killer's looking through the house for people, but he doesn't know that Marie's there yet. And then Marie tries to find the phone. She ends up sneaking into like the wardrobe. Yeah. And then the mum comes in, and the mum sees her as she's trying to get in. The killer comes up, slits her throat.
The mum's seen the dad's dead body down there, because she hides the son to go back into the room. Yeah. And then he comes in with a blade and kind of slices her and then mutilates her. Yeah, and then Richard right in front of Marie through the she literally just sees her slice her throat, and you get to properly see it slice through her throat.
And you're thinking like, that head going to be sucking dick? That's what I was thinking. I was like, imagine just like what he's going to do with his bodies, because he cuts her hand off for some reason.
Yeah, he does. That's what I mean. But that's that thing, that extra kind of like mutilated, sick kind of level, kind of thing of like that. There's a mutilation level that does get somewhat added in there. That you didn't need to do that, but you're doing it.
And it's weird, Yeah. It's like, why? Why are you cutting her hand off?
Yeah, I don't know where that part comes from. It is noticeable that it is her hand that has the wedding ring on.
Maybe.
I don't know why.
I think so.
In my head, but I'm just thinking about like the marriage or commitment, or as if she's trying to like destroying the family bonds, or all that kind of thing was going through my head a bit. But yeah, it's really, really tense, and it's interesting that this is actually somewhat happens quickly, and that also that obviously the house part actually you're almost thinking that would be most of a film. You know what I mean? In a lot of ones, the build up to this would be most of the film all in that one location. But this is almost just like through to the into the kind of I don't know,
kind of like
first,
the first act,
or just into the like beginning of the second, isn't it? Kind of?
Yeah, because we get the
little boy.
We see Alex bound and gagged up.
Oh yeah, of course, yeah.
And this is where part of what I thought the twist came in, and then you get you get the little boy, and
and again, this is that adds on to that thing I was saying about Marie, because it's literally like she hears him run, and then she just kind of goes, and then she hears him get his way outside and run, and she just kind of stands there.
But she's with Alex, isn't she?
She's with Alex, yeah. She just kind of stands looking through the blind. There's no like reaction to go like there's like a oh my god no kind of thing, but there's the boy running away, and there's no like I'm going to try and call him back or make him realise I'm in the house so he might come back to me. It's just purely like just standing and staring, which as a first time viewer you're kind of like what the fuck, like you would make a noise or bang or or try to like be like to the killer like we hear or something. Again, I know that's again pushed away from that, but I still think it's like fucking hell. And then obviously you got Alexis still tied up and fucking screaming.
The little boy's death. I think that's probably my favourite, man. Because that is fucking rough. You just see
we just see the gun,
the cornfield, the little boy run, and then you see like a shot of it, like off the field, and then just a pop. Yeah, the flashing light, and just nothing, and you're like,
I think in terms of hitting, that's the one that hit because you're like, fuck, you're like, they're actually, you're like, what are they going to do? I think as soon as you've got the kid and stuff like that, who I didn't really even properly notice, to be honest, until the guy had already been in the house. I was like, oh, there's a kid here. But once you knew what he did to him, the dad, you're like, this is clearly all bets are off.
Yeah,
once you've been fucking skulls and once you've been crushing skulls, then it's like, this is off. So that kid, I was like, if you were in certain films, you'd be like, the kid's fine.
The kid's fine.
But in this one, you're like, no.
The kid's fine. I was wondering, like, are they going to do the kid in? And then they do the kid in, and it's like the end of the first act.
To me, at that point, it was more of what level is it going to do? I was like, okay, that was the more classy route of like, if you're going to kill the kid, it's off screen, but still kind of haunting in its own way.
I think you have to, man. Yeah. You can't,
the less classy way is literally like shotgun, like blast his head off.
Oh
my god!
And do it in slow motion.
Yeah, boom.
Repeat it 3 times.
Yeah, different angles. Boom, 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 boom.
And just like, oh my god! And you're just like, oh, what the fuck?
Yeah, no, but no, it's I think the dad's from a purely practical fucking hell, like that was like caught me by surprise. But from a haunting aspect, like I think there's something really dark about it, like the way it
just
is
how merciless it is.
But it's it's just that like walkout gun, and it's just like there's no like finds the second find, bang, gone. That's it done. It's like fucking hell. And then obviously you get him go back into the house and he she hides away as he gets and pulls into the car. And that's when you're like, oh, okay. So you're watching this film and you're like, oh, okay, like this wasn't the main base. It's like, oh, we're going somewhere else.
We're going else, yeah. And then they jump in because obviously Alex gets taken into the back of this fuck truck that he's got, this dirty hobo van, which is a bit Jeepers Creepers.
He's a bang babe.
He's a fucking French bang babe.
That's French bang, yeah.
Yeah.
Go and find your local truck guy. He'll sort you out.
It's like it's like the guy on Fake Taxi. It's just like old and grey. And always gets his asshole licked. It's like, why do you have these really hot women and these really ogre men?
Disgusting man because big dick.
Big dick. Like I said a few episodes ago, the more weird a man is, the bigger his dick.
Yeah.
But
that's the elixir of life.
That's the elixir of life. Become weird. So Alex is in the back of this fuck van, and then Mary kind of scrambles in there as well, doesn't she? And she's kind of hiding. I think Alex has taken a knife at this point, and then we get to the petrol station, which is another kind of really tense moment where the killer kind of like starts to fill up the van, and we start to see the fuel kind of tick up and the liters go.
Yeah.
And she's Mary's like trying to sneak off behind it to get into the petrol station, and you're switching between her and this kind of like tick 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 tick. It's a really clever use of sound and just of that whole thing, you know.
And yeah, it continues as they make their way in. Like once she snuck her way in, kind of trying to get attention and stuff, like things like that, obviously. And moving her way around, but I really like the scene when he goes into the the sunglasses.
Yeah,
where he's kind of just talking about like in this kind of odd kind of it's like I don't need sunglasses, but what do you think of these sunglasses? What do you think? And he's really intimidating to the guy behind the counter who's just like,
well, and I could,
you know why?
I could see why people would find like this a bit jarring if they know, if they know the twist, because I'm sure he says the name of the killer, and he speaks to him as if he's seen him before.
Yeah,
because Mary comes in and she's like hiding and she's crouching and she's like throwing her. She's like, don't say anything to this fucking guy, and then the killer comes in and the killer's talking to him, and I swear he calls him like Pierre or some kind of.
I guess you could take it somewhere because the second the killer comes in, the guy seems terrified though.
Yeah.
But then if you just talk to someone who's talking in two different ways, like this guy, then it's suddenly there. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
The person would be someone.
You would, but then I have a
this
thing anyway.
This is, I mean, that's part of the whole part of the twist is
it's the unreliable narrator, isn't it?
It is,
like,
and it's a very inconsistent kind of twist that comes with it that could be viewed as a completely atrocious twist if you look at it a certain way, because it generally wouldn't make any sense whatsoever.
Yeah.
And then but I do feel that there are like, as majority of people think it's an atrocious twist. It's a one that makes no sense. It's almost adding a twist into a film that didn't need a twist, kind of thing.
Yeah.
And I agree with that part. It doesn't actually need a twist.
No.
The film would have been absolutely excellent just sticking as it had been.
As for some weird dude.
Yeah. But as a twist, I also think it is somewhat overly criticised. When I do think there are some logical reasons that are in there. I'm not saying that everything is logical, and not all of it can be explained.
Well, we'll talk about the twist when we get there.
We'll get to that bit. Yeah.
Because the petrol station is, it's a great scene. I actually think, weirdly enough, I saw this when I was scrolling through TikTok, and they show you like a rant, just like they do films in like 60 parts, and I saw like a bit where a woman comes into it, and then she's crawling behind, and the petrol station guy's like, what's going on? And then the killer walks in.
Yeah.
And I was like, what film? What's this? So I clicked in the comments, and it said High Tension, and I was like, oh, okay, like, okay. So I didn't like watch anymore, and I didn't like click to find the next part. But I think this whole scene's really tense because. Yeah, you're right. The petrol station worker is basically like, this is weird. The killer's kind of like so casual and playing with him, and like trying the sunglasses on.
Yeah.
And then he's like, "Do you have this bottle of whiskey?"
Yeah.
And then he's like, I'm not supposed to say.
I'll only have I can only have like the top brand, the classiest kind of whiskey, basically kind of thing. So the guy's like, so go and get the one at the very kind of top, the big stuff. So goes over to there while she's trying to sneak into the back to get onto the phone.
Yeah, and then he's like, he turns around with one, and he's like, "Do you have this one?" And he turns around, and then as he turns around again, you get the fucking axe
like bang, slam straight into it.
And then the stomp.
Which I didn't even see where the axe came from. That's what I mean. Like, this is the unreliable part of it, because I was literally just suddenly like, did he have an axe?
I mean,
where the fuck did that come from? Like, where is it?
But he axed him, and then when he's on the floor, he stamps on his back.
It
seems like all of the deaths in this just have that extra bit of brutality.
They do.
You know?
It just and it's. I feel it. You feel them. Like it literally feels impactful. Like you're like fucking hell. I could do that. You know. It has a real impact to the.
Yeah. There was a particular one at the end, and I was like freaking. I was like, oh my god, that's fucking rough.
Yeah. I think which one? The one where I thought all the deaths had passed at that point, and I was like, holy fuck. Okay, they've added an extra one, and it's fucking full on as hell.
Oh no, different one, man.
Okay.
We'll talk about it when we get there. And then we get the scene where like she, and this is also where the twist that I thought came in as well.
Yeah.
Which we'll get there, you know, when we get to the twist. But you get that really good scene where they're like kind of like creeping in and out of the toilet, you know, and like the killer goes and just nonchalantly has a piss, and then he leaves, and then she kind of has like a little sip of water because you'd be thirsty. Somebody's trying to kill you. It's very thirsty work.
Yeah.
And then she calls the police, and she's like, somebody's got Alex. They killed the family. You need to send like a police station. And then she's like, and this is where I was like, you're fucking mental, because they're saying, where are you? And she's like, I'm at a petrol station. They're like, which petrol station? And she's like, if I burn it down, will you come and get it then? And hangs up.
Yeah.
As opposed to being like, I'm fucking
Yeah,
London
she
Road.
is fucking like she doesn't know where she is, and I don't know if she's in frustration of like, how the hell don't you know? But it's like, well, you can't tell us where the fuck you are.
But you just tell us. You
Just
can go
tell us
outside
where-
and tell us.
Then she can't do that. Yeah. And
You
then-
know?
Yeah.
And then she gets the shooter, and we get the Muse kind of like plug-in baby
Yeah.
as she's stalking the car. The only thing I thought is, but this obviously makes sense with the twist, is that she catches up to her really quickly. You know?
Yeah.
But then it makes sense
Yeah,
when you
yeah.
think about it.
That's what I mean. It's the idea that you're like there, or a lot of those
Yeah.
things don't. Like I was just saying. So some of these things that they're there, or items are there, or people are in certain places. Somewhat is like from a perspective kind of thing of how you're being told the story. Yeah, and then it leads to that whole like chasing after, and then and this is why it's because it's so hard, because it is the idea, and obviously you know, for this kind of moment, you know, people say like two people being somewhere at once kind of thing that you get with this twist of how it happens. You know, the fact that you've got like a car going after car, but she's also in a car that crashes, but the van doesn't crash with Alexia in it. So it's like those extra elements that do make it harder and harder to kind of justify certain parts, you know. And that I do totally get in the head of how you've made up this kind of story, because obviously then she comes out covered in blood and she's all mashed up from the crack, you know, and then like still going after the killer, you know, as she like tries to get into the vat and tries to, you know, free Alexia, but then it ends up.
Yeah.
We end up in the whole, you know, inside the greenhouse, basically, after that's been free, you know. Alexia doesn't want any part of her, but, like, she's like, what the fuck are you doing? Like freaking out on her.
Yeah.
Marie doesn't understand why she's freaking out on her, you know, she's got, like, but obviously, when we've gone into the greenhouse with the killer.
Oh, man, that scene's fucking class.
Yeah.
You know? Like
fighting each other through the
like the killer's like shining the torch and looking around.
Yeah.
Marie's sneaking around in this greenhouse, and then she finds like a piece of wood with barbed wire on it. And I when she's pulling it out, I was like, she's trying to sneak away, you know, trying to get it through, and then she starts fucking rolling it up. And I was like, oh, that's fucking wrong, because that barbed wire is rusty as fuck.
Yeah.
And then she starts to get confident. She's got this thing, and you're like, okay, fuck, like she's got to end this now. And you see, like, you know, you have like the sheet of plastic, and you see the torch like swinging and looking, and you're like, fuck. And then like she sneaks up on it, and she's about to fucking get the, you know, club the killer, and then you see that
bash that skull in.
Yeah, bash that skull in, and then you see that the flashlight is just tied up, you know, and it's like a trap, and then he fucking puts the plastic sheet on her head, and they have this fight, and then this also plays into the twist that I thought, because he's like strangling her, and he throws her like down onto the ground. She's like pretty much like on the cusp of death.
Yeah.
And he's like ringing the knife along like her chest and stuff like that. And then he puts his fingers in her mouth, and he's like playing around with it. And he's like, she turns you on, she turns me on as well, you know?
Yeah, like a proper gross kind of...
Like a gross fucking lad.
But kind of a link to the idea of it's both kind of same thinking kind of thing.
Yeah. And then I don't know, what is it that she stabs him with? Because she reaches for something. And I
thought it was a broken bit of glass from the... Because it's like a greenhouse kind of thing. I thought it was a bit of glass that she gets on the ground.
But it looks squidgy in her hand.
Oh, I don't know about it being squidgy.
Because when I looked at it, I thought it was like a deflated, like a little American football or something like that, you know? It's like a tiny kind of like, almost like oval shaped thing. And I watched it like 2 or 3 times trying to think like what it was. And each time I just couldn't figure out what it was, you know?
Yeah, I don't know. I thought it was just a piece of glass, but to be honest, even my description's not helping me. It just skips over the bit when she manages to. But then she batters us. Then she continues to beat him with the stick and the barbed wire anyway, doesn't she?
Yeah, and that is the scene that I was like, Christ,
because
they don't, you know, pull away from it.
Yeah, it smashes down and things like that, but he's got like more of the plastic sheet stuff over his face, hasn't he? So
yeah.
You don't like fully see in his head like those, but because there's something in between kind of thing. You don't see like his face like thing, but you do as it like the plastic appears, the plastic is moved up and stuff. You see like
we see the barbed wire hitting his head.
Yeah,
and then pulling away and like almost like peeling away.
Yeah.
And it's so wrong.
It is really cool. It's a really cool effect that it has. Yeah, but that's also when you get the same scene where it's revealed, the twist is revealed.
Yes.
Because this is when you get the police in the gas station. At the same time, she's going through this scene with the suffocation is when it also cuts over to the gas station.
Well, she suffocates him, and then she goes back to Alex, doesn't she?
Yeah,
I think, and then it
is revealed. It's revealed in the middle of the fight that they're having.
I thought it was straight after.
No, it's revealed because it's kind of like she's getting rid of that personality.
Okay.
Yeah, it's in between that bit where you find out you see more of it afterwards.
Yeah,
but there are quick shots because you get the
2 police officers who are like both in tracksuits.
They see that like Jesus Christ. Like, what is it? Because they see her put the axe into the guy.
Yes.
Which is the first like full reveal that actually she is the killer.
Yeah.
That Marie's the killer, and then we cut back to that where we get to see her with getting the hold on him, and then the bludgeoning kind of thing.
Yeah.
And we get that because then we get flashes that kind of happen, which starts to reveal a kind of a slight idea of what's happening, which then builds up to the context of when she goes back into the van, why is suddenly so terrified as she's trying to take stuff off her, and why as she goes in and it kind of puts in a new perspective when she gets in the van and says he's gone, everything's okay, and she's fucking freaking, and you're like, yeah, because you're the fucking killer, like you're the one that's done this to her and you don't like even realise that you're that fucking insane.
I thought now this is the twist, obviously
the twist that you thought it was
now,
going to be.
I when I read it, I read something that said like Marie is the killer or something.
Yeah.
And then I like didn't pick, like I forgot that, but I didn't remember who it was.
Yeah.
But in my head, I thought it was that Alex was basically like with this guy, because she mentions like wanting a boyfriend, you know, at the very start, and I thought that like she'd fixed all of this up. You know, him to come to the house to like kill her family, to take him away, and which is why there are times when so like some of the ones that I wrote down was like how she knows like where everybody is in the family, like in the house, because Alex has been telling her. The scene where, you know, he knows that she's in the petrol station, because Mary sneaks off to the petrol station, and then my thought is like Alex says like to the killer, she's here, she's in the petrol station hiding. He goes there, you know.
So you thought, you
So
thought
I
the
thought
killer and Alexa were in it together.
Yeah, because there's also that scene where like,
because you don't see Alexa in the film, you somewhat get an odd thing because you don't see her a lot and you don't see her very much during the whole family invasion kind of thing. It does somewhat at times feel a little bit like she's like left out because she's in on something to get rid of
That's
her family.
what I thought.
She's got a little plot, and almost like she's brought Marie to frame her for, or for, you know what I mean? Like, again, a plot that totally would have worked and been easier to explain.
And I was like, why? And I was watching it like, why is everybody like annoyed at this plot?
Yeah,
like it's a bit like You're Next, where like somebody's in on it. I was like, oh.
You didn't realise it was.
I didn't realise that.
All along.
Yeah, that it was that. It was that. And it kind of like, I get why people wouldn't like the twist, because then you have to ask yourself like, is this, how much of the film happened? What are the plot points? What are like the bits that aren't anything? But for me, I think I really like it because, like, I feel like it's going to be one of those films where I'll definitely watch it again, and I'll probably pick up more stuff. Yeah. But I also think it very much, from the start, sets up like the unreliable narrator. Like it starts off with her in in a psychiatric unit.
Yeah.
Shit's fucking going on. So this weird kind of like made up man, that maybe like the thought of him getting some slop by a decapitated head, that's just her sexual frustrations or something. That's her wanted violence, because the head also looks a bit like Alex,
Yeah. These were the things that I was like thinking about, because I remember thinking at the start, thinking that they had like the head was weirdly similar.
Yeah.
To that, like I was totally. That's why I was kind of. I expected to fully, because I was aware of somewhat of the twist and the idea. I was expecting fully to hate this completely.
Yeah.
And to be honest, I do justifiably understand why people could absolutely hate this, because it is true that yes, a lot of the links that can be made, and even saying the unreliable narrator is still somewhat pushing it.
Of course, I mean? Yeah. People will either like that or hate it, won't they?
That's what I mean. And not everyone likes it. But to be fair, like Fight Club. I mean, a lot of that can't be like they say it can, but there is still a lot of stuff there in Fight Club as a class, and Fight Club is better thought out than this is.
Yeah.
In terms of that, because this one kind of pushes too much of the things that they can get away with, and still justifiably mentally not make the link. But there is still a lot with Brad Pitt. Tyler Durden is not real. If I just blew your mind.
Yeah. Yeah.
Brad Pitt.
Brad Pitt is real.
The same person.
Brad
Pitt is not real.
Brad Pitt is real. Tyler Durden is not.
Yeah, Tyler Durden is not real. But also Brad Pitt is not real. That's what I'm really blowing your mind.
Brad Pitt's a Mandela effect. We all thought we watched him. But
exactly. You've all thought you've seen him all these films for years, but you actually haven't.
It's actually been Edward Norton.
It was always Edward Norton. He's done all of them.
He's done all of those films.
Yeah, he's in 7.
Yeah, he's in 7.
He's in all of these films.
He's in Mr. and Mrs. Smith. He made love to Angelina Jolie.
And what the craziest thing is, that also on top of that twist, is that Edward Norton is actually Ben Affleck.
Yeah.
And Ben Affleck has starred in every film for the last 20 years.
Yeah.
There's no such thing as a male leading star. It's only been Ben Affleck.
Yeah, it's just...
He's that good.
It's a case of, like, national and cultural psychosis that we believe that other people exist,
Matt Damon... George Clooney, all these big stars you can think, it's just Ben Affleck.
It's all psychosis.
It was Ben Affleck all along.
Yeah. This podcast is hosted by Ben Affleck.
This is all Ben Affleck.
It's just him.
It's all his fault. But, going Fight Club seemed like the easiest
comparison
to do there, is that the fact that as much as you can explain everything, you still somewhat have to take it from the unreliable relator.
Narrator.
The unreliable realtor who sold them that house.
He sold that house.
And sold the family this house. Sold
the fuck bus.
I think you gotta put that. It like if we take it as like a random final scene, a la like Psycho at the end of this film, when you've got her in the thing, and at the beginning you've got that. But it's not just that. The mental facility. We interpret this as her reflecting on what's happening. So this is what she believed happened. She's still believing she's not the killer. Then her retelling in both ways and two different people in different places actually somewhat makes sense.
Yeah.
If you're retelling a story and you fully believe that there's two different people, then she's going to tell the story of two different people in two different places.
Yeah.
And if we're taking it from her perspective with that, it makes sense. And it's not perfectly done, because we could think of, for instance, like, how did she know about the whole scene about the police and the CCTV being the reveal of her being the killer is kind of a weird extra detail to add in there. However, could also, again, still a plot hole technically, but technically if she had been interrogated by the police, they would talk about the fact that they saw the CCTV camera and they saw that.
Yeah.
So therefore she's heard that, so she's adding that into her stories and she's making the story in her head. And apart from that, we only also see, one thing that I did pick up on is, like, when we get the bit where she's chasing Alexia, which follows this through the forest, we then get those flashes of the reality of what she actually did. So the reality of her pushing it into the dad's head.
Yeah.
The reality of her chasing after the brother with the gun, or slicing the mum or the mum's hand and wrist with the... We only get these quick flashes of her as real, as though they are sudden flashes, you'd almost be I was almost expecting to see a longer kind of layout of how she did these things.
Yeah.
But all you get is these sudden, like, she's walking up and you're getting a flash of the reality of one of the deaths, and then you get a flash of and it's like that. And again, somewhat, if you explain it like that, it's somewhat almost as if the mental Marie in the mental facility, as she's telling the story, is getting sudden flashes of what really happened.
Maybe, yeah.
What actually happened. She's not fully, because she's mad and not believing it and delusional, she's not accepting it. So when she's getting these flashes of the reality scene, it's like as if her mind is showing it to her, but she's quickly moving past it, like moving on. Like, that's not it. Like, those flashes. And obviously, as we mentioned before, the head fucking at the start, Maria and Alexia even arrive. But what I find more interesting is the fact that you've got what I think looks like Alexia's head.
Yeah. Is
then followed again by a scene of Maria looking out the window like she's reflecting on something. So the idea of him coming to, like, the town for the first time, because a lot of people's that I saw was people saying, like, but he's in a completely different town. They haven't even arrived in the town yet. She's driving in the car. But if you make him a version of her brain, then technically her looking out the window is like she's imagining this character. It's like she's imagining this character the same way I said that I thought she was being a bit clingy with Alexia at the start, is her imagining almost as this character what she'd want to do to Alexia.
Maybe,
you know what I mean? Like, but that's it, because it is followed by the scene of her, like, almost daydreaming out the window, as if she's just created this character in her head. She's like, I'm going to a new house, I'm going to a new town with Alexia's family, and her brain has made this psychotic killer. And she's made that, and that what we're seeing is the moment of his almost creation as this truck driver. Like, she's making up a story in her head of they're driving along, kind of thing.
And it's kind of, and then again, you're kind of thinking, like, is she just creating, like, whatever she can because she thinks that this is a way of, like, because it's the classic mindfuck of trying to figure out, a mental person's mind.
Yeah.
Because she doesn't believe that she's the killer, or at least we're not supposed to. Like, is it that she is creating this character as a story so that she can, whatever happens, she could tell people that this man was killing them?
Yeah.
Or is it that, she's like, what the fuck is
I think
happening?
if she's in that, like, I also think there's that kind of, she's in that, if we're taking it as she's retelling the story and it's Marie who's telling the story, then in which case it's almost as if this kind of, like, there's somewhat of a kind of a justification, like her brain is trying to work it all out in the brain, and we're literally kind of in the head of the, like, person, psychotic person retelling a story, and almost trying to work out the details for herself and ahead of what's going on, like what happened. And she's still believing this has happened and getting flashes of the reality.
Yeah.
Or getting flashes of what may have happened, and that's kind of it. As I said, I don't think it's a perfect justification. I still think there are parts that have not been fully thought out enough or handled enough. It could have worked in some ways, but I still understand the other side of people saying, if you're not using that excuse of the unreliable narrator and you're just taking this as the believability that someone can do these things, and from Alexia's perspective that this would actually make any sense, then for a lot of the people that die and stuff like that, then there's a huge plot holes.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Huge plot holes. But the reason I like it is because I do think there is an interpretation that you can take with it. And it's not so closed off as some of these kind of plot holes that are done in other films, where you can go, actually, no, this doesn't make any fucking sense. Like, what is it? The whole identity one, where it's a split identity.
Your favourite film,
You know, that one that we've talked about before. You know, with one point where you think it's the kid who's the killer, but then it's not. It's a kind of a different personality.
It's all happening in his head, and he's in a car.
And the problem with that is that gives you such a closed off thing. And by the end of it, it's so closed off almost to the idea that you're kind of like, yeah, no, that doesn't make any fucking sense. Whereas I think there's somewhat of an openness about this that kind of makes it go, yeah, you could interpret it that way, but you could also think about it in this way. And I think there's also part of me that doesn't want to bring it down because I think the rest of this film is so solid.
I think
we've skipped a little bit.
Yeah, we have skipped a little bit, but that's what we do. We skip back and forth.
We've skipped a major, like, gruesome death in a car with a chainsaw.
Yeah, I think because that one just kind of comes out of nowhere. Almost.
It does. It was almost like an added like cherry on top. It was almost following this like. I think, as I mentioned earlier, I do think that this film could have literally ended with the whole, with the killer kind of chasing them through the thing and that kind of end bit, maybe bringing Alexia a bit more into it. But it didn't need to go this way of the twist.
I mean, it goes, it kind of goes very like Texas Chainsaw at the end.
Yeah.
Where we get the reveal of the twist. And then Alex is basically like, it was you you did all of this.
Yeah.
And then she slices Mary's face. And then as she runs, what I do like is it cuts between Mary chasing and the killer,
Yeah.
Very kind of like simultaneously. And the killer gets this power tool out and it's like, I'm going to get you. Yeah. And then he's chasing her kind of through this like sunny forest. It's quite Chainsaw Massacre. The only kind of music we've really got is the of the chainsaw.
Yeah.
And like this random car comes out of nowhere. Some random French man just enjoying his day. And then he crashes because Alexia gets in the way. Yeah. And then he
jumps on the hood and just fucking goes to town with the glass through right into his chest and face and fucking sawing into him, and it's just like a gore of blood.
Yeah,
it is possibly the only one in the film that felt unnecessary, like unneeded.
And that's what I mean.
Yeah,
because it's almost like it's just
like a cherry
on
top. But you don't really want it.
Or
like you don't need it.
You're full.
It's good. It's cool. It's like
you've had your cake. Had enough. You're full up.
Yeah,
and you're just like
it's more about the ending of these two characters now than it is about that. And that's
the random French man who just gets chainsawed. The random dude that just like it just feels. Yeah, it feels excessive a little bit to be honest. It's
not needed. But it's enjoyable.
Yeah, it's fun.
I'm not going to say no. Like, don't do that. But it's like, at the same time, you could probably cut that and it wouldn't make any difference to the film, kind of thing, where the film's going next.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. I do like that perspective between the... And that's the thing, like, saying getting rid of the twist, but at the same time, I do like kind of what it does once it's revealed. Like, forgetting about that part of it. But like you said, the changing of the personas and the part between Marie and Alexia to the very end, it is quite compelling. It's quite interesting, I thought. Like, seeing where they're going to go with this, and you, to us, right to the very end, you are wondering whether Marie is pretty much just going to win this battle.
Yeah, you're thinking. It
feels like she's just going to. We're leading to her just killing her. Like that's what we're watching. We're just going to watch her kill her.
Yeah, and then, however, she fucking deals with that, Yeah. And then she's like, "You don't love me. You don't love me." And then she says like, yeah, I do.
And stabs her through.
Stabs her. She's saying like, nobody's ever going to come between us. Yeah. Nobody's ever going to come between us.
And it seems like she's dead. And when she gets stabbed, it seems like she's going to die.
Yeah.
But then she's alive in the metaphysics.
She's fine. She's alright.
She's all right.
It's only a crowbar. Stab it through you. It's only a rusty old
through to the other side.
killer's
Through to the other side, isn't it?
Yeah, through to the other side.
Yeah. Around the heart area. Seems unlikely to live.
But I quite like the ending because then we go back to the start, which is in the in the psychiatric unit, and she's kind of saying like, is she Alex is watching her now. She's repeating nobody's going to come between us, and then she says like, can she see me? And she's like no, but she knows she's there. Like I think it's that thing of like, well, it's a two-way mirror. Like I get the impression you would just be like, there's someone back there, mate. You just feel like watching.
Yeah, but it's the fact she reaches out. Yeah, like she knows that she's there. It's like she has this additional like awareness of Alexa. Adds into it, but also just adds extra murkiness to the whole twisted questioning of what is happening here. How's it going on? It all adds to it in this kind of like so. And yes, this film could have done with the classic. Come to the end of this, she finally gets Alexia back, she's managed to kill, and that's kind of it. Yeah. They get away together, and that would have been a perfectly fine film.
Yeah, it would have been a fine film.
It would have been absolutely fine. But instead, it tried to swing for the fence and go, you know what, we're going a bit crazy.
We're going out there.
And we go with a twist that is extremely divisive. And, and I'm on both sides of both being like, I completely understand why it doesn't work, but at the same time, for some reason, and I normally hate these kind of things, and I normally think these are absolute shit, and yet for some reason I want to justify the fact that actually this overall I think is a very strong film.
Yeah, no, I'm with you.
And even with the twist, I still think it's just justifiable enough that I can live with it, kind of thing, to be like, you know what, I would go back and watch it again. I think I could somewhat enjoy it. And I don't think, like some people said, that the twist makes it a complete write-off of a film.
No, I mean I like it. I think it's a murky enough twist that I think you come away with, or at least I come away with that thing of like, well, actually, I can dig about this and I can think about it a bit more.
Yeah.
The film that just came into my head then, and I spoke about it briefly on our summer slashers, was All the Boys Love Mandy Lane, which I think was Amber Heard's first film, weirdly enough, and that has a twist. And it's kind of one of those twists that you can kind of see coming, and then you had a lot of them in the early 2000s where it was like that person was mental, that person did it, and it feels a bit shit and a bit weak. Yeah. Whereas I feel like for some reason with this
personality one is done a lot.
The split personality one is done a lot. And it hasn't particularly done well for people with split personality or schizophrenia. Let's be honest. No, however, I feel like for this film, I think at least, because it feels like there's something a bit more to it, that you come away with a bit more of an interpretation of it. I think maybe because of the opening, and you're not sure whether, like, is this a story that you're being told has happened, or is this unraveling in front of your eyes, you know? And I feel like that's the difference there. Yeah. I kind of feel like you don't know whether, like, what level of this is.
Yeah, you don't know if this is a retelling or if this is how it's happened and wherever way we're taking this, which adds enough kind of, I can explain that why that's wrong, but I can't fully explain why that's wrong.
Yeah.
And that's just enough grey area for you to go, okay.
Yeah, okay, that's alright. You're alright.
And also because I quite like the way it goes after the reveal as well. Adds on to it. Sometimes some of these, they do the reveal and then that's pretty much it, and it shits the bed.
Yeah.
As well. And they really do just fuck it, because they go, that's it, and then it's normally one person acting extremely insane. But the plus side here is that Marie continues to be in this kind of, yes, you know she's insane, but she's still in this odd delusional state and not really understand kind of, there's enough of a I don't really know what's going on here kind of thing. Yeah. Like switching back and forth, and it works well enough because the performances also help it to work.
Yeah, that's it, man.
And it's as I said, it's a well directed and well, somewhat well thought out kind of film, and I think it looks really good. I like the kind of the soundtrack and the non-soundtrack at times. That mix, I like the griminess, the 70s style of it, the Texas Chainsaw kind of style to it, and the practical effects I think are fantastic.
The effects fantastic. Talking about the soundtrack, I put over on Twitter at CMTH Podcast that we were covering it. And we got a reply from Neil from We Needed Roads podcast. They recently did their 100th episode. They pay tribute to the CMTH Boys on that, so we pay tribute back. And Neil said, I really remember really enjoying, and the twist didn't really bother me that much, but it has a brilliant Muse needle drop in it. And that is one of the things that did really strike out to me as well, is as we get to the end, and Marie's just been stabbed, and she says she's still saying like nothing will ever come between us. We get that really nice kind of like drop of Plug-in Baby, with the piano. And then it leads into the psychiatric unit, and it makes me think about when films did that, particularly early 2000s films seem to do a lot of like the needle drop, I feel like it doesn't happen.
28 Days Later has the good.
28 Days has an amazing
towards the
one,
end. Some of their ones are really like strong. I mean, also Muse is fantastic for a needle drop.
Yeah,
when you've got the proper operatic kind of
so
sound,
foreboding.
It fucking works so well.
Yeah, and it works so well.
28 Days Later as well, isn't it? Muse is in that one. There's quite operatic as part of that.
Yeah.
But it does really like work well in this film like that. Also because, like you said, like you mentioned before about sometimes the lack of sound. When it does hit, it hits harder.
Yeah.
Because you've let kind of natural sound, and that's part of the tension. Is that some of those scenes in the house don't really have any sound apart from just natural build up.
Floorboards creaking and
the house and hearing
footsteps, breathing.
Hearing
somebody, hearing him in the other room,
trying to stay silent and just hearing slight breath is fucking works. And it's one of those better films, but it is one of those ones that works better in horror films, and they don't use it enough, to be honest. When they try to do these kind of scenes, they always try to add some extra score or something underneath, or do fake sounds that just don't add to it.
Yeah,
it's not always done enough, but that also it's not always done well. Isn't when it is done, and that's the problem. Like some people just can't pull it off, but it is pulled off fantastically here. As I said, if you want a proper tense experience, and I don't know why you've listened to this whole episode to get to that, but to show someone, or if you're showing someone for the first time, if they want a properly tense experience, this is definitely one of those films that works really strongly for that.
Yeah, I really enjoyed this, man. I thought I came into it and I was thinking like, I recently watched another kind of French horror film, Under Paris. Much more new, and that was good. It was decent. And I went into it not knowing what to expect. Luckily, I'd forgotten what the actual twist. Well, I didn't know what the actual twist was. But even with the twist that I thought, I was still enjoying it. And like you said, this was the first time viewing for both of us. You knew the twist. I thought there was a different one, but we both found it real tense and real kind of gory. And for I think he's a real good director.
I think there are so many positives about this film that even if the twist was worked even less than it could, and it could work even less than it does, it still wouldn't take away from the fact that there's so much strong stuff here on this film. And I was plenty surprised. This is a film that I've seen so many times and mentioned so many times, and I remember seeing DVDs for it, and I remember looking at it a million times and thinking about it, and also mixing it up because it was around the same time as the Toolbox Murders. Is it Tobe? Is that Tobe Hooper?
Yeah.
I remember looking at DVD for that one and thinking, because that one has a kind of thing, and mixing up the two films at one time. And I've still haven't seen that one. But yeah, those, and thinking about it for so long and putting this one off, and it's nice when you put it off for so long and you actually are like, actually that was really decent.
Yeah, it's fucking
really enjoyable.
Well, I mean, come and let us know your thoughts on High Tension. Whether you think the twist is a banger or is a stinker. You can find us on Instagram and Twitter at CMTH Podcast. Please remember to hit that subscribe button and leave us a lovely review. We will see you next week. Au revoir and goodbye. Take care.